Hi, I'm Adam Fiveson, and I'm here to answer that age-old question, what is the golden ratio? And why should I care? Well, before we answer that question, let's examine an interesting sequence or list of numbers. Actually, the series starts with 0 and 1, but to make life easier, let's start with 1 and 1. To get the next number, we add the previous two numbers together. So now our sequence becomes 1, 1, 2. The next number will be 3 because 1 and 2 equals 3. What do you think the next number in the sequence will be? Remember, add the two previous numbers to get the next. So the next number should be 2 plus 3 equals 5. Here's what our sequence should look like if we continue on in this fashion for quite a while. So why does that matter? Why does any of that have anything to do with the golden ratio? Well, I'm going to answer that question, but first I think it's important that you understand why this is so very, very important. The golden ratio appears everywhere. It appears in fashion, it appears in music, it appears in art and architecture, it even appears in nature. Now, you're going to ask yourself, what does all of these numbers have to do with the golden ratio? Well, the relationship of this sequence of numbers to the golden ratio lies not in the actual numbers themselves, but in the ratio of consecutive numbers. Let's look at some of the ratios of these numbers. Now, if you notice, as you continue down the sequence, the ratios seem to be converging on one number from both sides of the number. And that number is 1.618. However, the important thing to know is that this is an irrational number. You never end up with exactly 1.618. No matter how many decimal places you go, it will continue to go on and on and on. And that number is called an irrational number. This is the symbol of the golden ratio. And this symbol represents a Greek letter called phi. Let's look at this mathematical formula here. It keeps popping up in the strangest places, places that we may not ordinarily have thought to look for it. It's important to note that Fibonacci did not invent this golden ratio. He just discovered one instance where it appeared naturally. In fact, civilizations as far back and as far apart as the ancient Egyptians, the Mayans, as well as the Greeks discovered the golden ratio and incorporated it into their own art, architecture, and design. They discovered the golden ratio seems to be nature's perfect number, and for some reason it just seems to appeal to our natural instincts, because the ratio of its length to its width is the golden ratio. And for centuries, designers of art and architecture have recognized the significance of the golden ratio in their work. Let's see if we can discover where the golden ratio appears in everyday objects. Use your measuring tool to compare the length and width of rectangular objects in your room or in your house, in your office, and depending on where you are right now, try to choose the objects that are meant to be the most visually appealing. The index card, a photograph, a picture frame, a textbook, a door frame, a computer screen, and heck, even a TV screen. Why is the golden ratio in so many places? And why have we taken it for granted for so long? What about music? Let's take a look at the piano keyboard. Do you see anything familiar? Well, you should. The pentagram describes a star which forms parts of many, many flags, from the European Union to the United States. The golden proportion is the basis of the golden rectangle, whose sides are in golden proportion to one another. The golden rectangle is considered to be the most visually pleasing of all rectangles. The ancient Greeks considered the golden rectangle to be the most aesthetically pleasing of all the rectangular shapes. What does all that have to do with me, and why should I care? Well, let's say you're a world-famous chef, and I'm sure you've heard the expression that people eat with their eyes. you may want to design something that involves or includes the ratios we're talking about today. The Vitruvian Man, for example. Leonardo did an entire exploration of the human body and the ratios of the lengths of various body parts. Leonardo da Vinci's talent as an artist may have been outweighed by his talents as a mathematician because he incorporated this type of geometry into so many of his paintings, the golden ratio being just one of his many mathematical tools. Why do you think he used it so much? Well, experts agree that he probably thought the golden measurements made his paintings more attractive. I certainly do as a graphic designer myself. I use the golden ratio all the time, and I find it to be incredibly effective. People ooh and ah 10 times more when I use the golden ratio than when I don't. So maybe he was a little too obsessed. Maybe I'm a little too obsessed with perfection. However, he was not the only one to use these golden properties in his work. Isn't it strange that the golden ratio came up in such an unexpected place? Well, let's see if we can find out why. The Greeks were the first to call phi the golden ratio. They associated the number with perfection. It seems to be part of human nature or instinct for us to find things that contain the golden ratio naturally attractive, such as the perfect rectangle. Realizing this, designers have tried to incorporate the golden ratio into their designs so as to make them more pleasing to the eye. Doors, notebook paper, textbooks, etc. all seem more attractive if their sides have a ratio that is close to phi. Fibonacci numbers can be found in pineapples and bananas. Bananas have 3 or 5 flat sides. Pineapple scales have Fibonacci spirals in sets of 8, 13, and 21. Now, is nature playing some kind of cruel game with us? No one knows that for sure. But scientists do speculate that plants grow in a spiral formation, do so in Fibonacci numbers because this arrangement makes for the perfect spacing for growth. And for some reason, these numbers provide a perfect arrangement for maximum growth potential and survival of the plant. If you find the golden ratio as interesting as I do, why don't you visit goldennumber.net and check it out.